This is something very near and dear to my heart, and I'm going to try to explain this without sounding like a douchebag. But on this deployment in 2017, I was here in Syria fighting ISIS, going into Raqqa, and there's been some data that has been extracted out. I'm going to show you an article, and it really leads me to the first thought I have is I see a lot of people complaining about why veterans get VA disability, and I hope this kind of sheds some light as to what that reason actually is. So at the end of 16, beginning of 17, the Marine Corps sent one battery to Syria to help a special operations mission. And then the battery that I was a part of, and I wasn't an artilleryman, I was psychological operations at that time. We went on the second wave towards that springtime. It's known as the secret war because it wasn't really talked about. And culture in that time, we were out of Iraq and we were out of Syria at that point in time, when in reality, obviously, that was not the case. But something I want to bring up is this article points out a few different Marines and a few soldiers on the battery with some staggering data of suicide, of TBI, and very severe symptoms like hallucinations. And of course, tinnitus is going to be a part of that. And it kind of deep dives into their case studies. Now, this Marine here was McDaniel. He was on gun too. He was your run of the mill, sprouted out of the ground country white dude in the Marine Corps. He loved his job. He was passionate about his job. He complained like every good Marine does. He was just an overall good dude, and he has an awesome mustache. Well, the truth is, McDaniel would go on to commit suicide shortly after getting out of the Marine Corps. He went through depressive episodes. He went through some very severe migraines. Go figure. When you're shooting charge 4, charge 5, 155 millimeter artillery rounds, you're going to have tinnitus, and that's going to develop migraines, which sucks because they're kind of eliminating that tinnitus as service connection, but that's neither here or there. And something to think about, this battery fired 7,188 rounds. I remember when every single night, because it's too hot to do anything during the day, and so ISIS at that time does everything at night, and so we do everything at night. They would fire non-stop, hundreds of rounds every single night. And if you're on the gun line, you don't just fire a few rounds and go back to, wherever it is. There's nowhere else to go. You're in the middle of nowhere. You are, for lack of a better word, no shit, the tip of the spear. And so you're sleeping around the gun even when you're not on shift. You're sleeping around the gun when they're firing charge 4, charge 5. And that's going to create micro TBIs. That's going to create tinnitus, migraines, and a slew of other conditions. Not to mention the quality of life within this area. We didn't have a shitter or a pisser. We had to just kind of go where you are. And so pollution is bad. So then you have all your respiratory conditions like sinusitis, rhinitis, sleep apnea, asthma, IBS, dysentery was a really, really big deal here, especially ordering food off the locals as they would walk up. It was just a very weird, strange deal. And anytime I see a comment from a civilian or from veterans, even to other veterans saying they don't deserve that compensation, or hey, he's not disabled, he's in the gym. I'm telling you, man, just because you have mental health and TBI disabilities does not mean you can't go to the gym. Okay, if anything, that's a form of treatment, in my experience. But this article really deep dives into it. I'm gonna have this in the link in the description, and I'll put it in the pinned comments as well, so you have easy access to it. 210, that's who I was with. But this article goes into a few different cases, like Lance Corporal Powell, and it just kind of shows their experiences after the Marine Corps, okay? And they're all bad. And we have this gentleman here, Mr. Ortiz, that was mentioned in the beginning. I'm going to show you an excerpt from this, okay? So this Marine was going through substance abuse, and he was experiencing symptoms of PTSD and TBI. When that happens in the Marine Corps, you are evaluated, because if those actions are a result of a condition that is caused by the Marine Corps or service at that point, you can't kind of get in trouble for those. It's more of a, you might not stay in the Marine Corps, but they're going to get you the help you need. In his case, they didn't. He was discharged with an OTH, which is not good at all. And something that really hit home. I have 3 kids, a 4th baby on the way here in a couple weeks. He and his family were squatting in a house. They are squatting. I try not to cuss on this channel, but holy shit, man. We had this Marine who is known, right? Who's in an area where evidence is now coming to fruition of an overwhelming majority of everyone that was in that battery with TBI, mental health, migraines, and tinnitus, in a slew of respiratory conditions. And this Marine was found during that time in 21, that his actions weren't a result, man. It just sucks. I pray for the best for this Marine here. I hope he gets representation and kind of fights that discharge. If anyone knows him, Mr. Ortiz, okay, if anyone knows him, have him reach out to me. I will do my absolute best to help him in any way I can, even if that means starting from scratch and fighting that character discharge. But then it goes to unseen risk, and this is where it really starts talking about the evidence that is now coming to fruition when it comes to injuries to the brain. You get rattled enough, your brain's up there like a ping pong, okay? You're shooting charge 4, charge 5, which for those of you who don't know, it's a very loud boom. In fact, when you go to like your audiologist appointment, there's probably a chart of what's the loudest. Howitzers are number 1 all the way up the top, as red as it can be, especially at charge 5. Now ask yourself, do you think we had adequate ear protection during this deployment, right? We did at the beginning, but as months go by in these conditions, we didn't have showers, okay? We had MREs and water. That's it. This was the tip of the spear type deployment. That ear pro was degraded, and we were not resupplied of ear protection, okay? And so it really sucks to see that these, I'm saying Marines, but there were also soldier. There was a Army battery as well. I believe there was 2 Marine batteries and 2 batteries from the Army, the Army participating in this deployment. It just really sucks, man. If there's really no point in making this video. I just wanted to get my point across that, hey, disabilities aren't always as seen as musculoskeletal, right? Just because you're not in a wheelchair doesn't mean you don't deserve disability. Have the evidence, get the evidence. And if you went through something like that, you need to express that. 1, if you're still active, express that to your medical providers. And then 2, if you're already a veteran, seek healthcare. It's extremely important. If you have thoughts of suicide or self-harm in any manner or harming anyone else, reach out to someone. There are tons of resources. I would personally recommend getting with your Silkies chapter with Irreverent Warriors. If you just look up IW Silkies, there's a hike at a city near you. That's what I would recommend.